Singapore is a small island nation located at the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula. Its history is a story of resilience, innovation, and transformation, from its early days as a fishing village to its emergence as a global city-state in the 21st century. The earliest known historical records of Singapore are shrouded in time, but a 3rd century Chinese account describes it as Pulau Chong, referring to Pulau Ujong, which means the island at the end of a peninsula in the Malay language. Later, the city was known as Temasek, or Sea Town, when the first settlements were established from 1298 to 1299 AD. During the 14th century, this small but strategically located island earned a new name. According to legend, Sang Nila Utama, a prince from Palembang, the capital of Sriwijaya, was out on a hunting trip when he caught sight of an animal he had never seen before. Taking it to be a good sign, he founded a city where the animal had been spotted, naming it the Lion City, or Singapura, from the Sanskrit words Simha, which means lion, and Pura, which means city. The city was then ruled by the 5 kings of ancient Singapura. Located at the tip of the Malay Peninsula, the natural meeting points of sea routes, the city flourished as a trading post for vessels such as Chinese junks, Arab dows, Portuguese battleships, and Buginese schooners. In January 1819, Sir Stamford Raffles landed on the island, establishing it as a trading post for the British East India Company. The British recognized the strategic importance of Singapore's location and its potential as a trading hub. In 1824, an Anglo-Dutch treaty left Malaya and Singapore in the British sphere, and in August, the whole of Singapore Island was ceded to the British for a monetary payment. 2 years later, Singapore, Penang, and Malacca were combined as the Straits settlements to form an outlying residency of India. In 1830, they were reduced to a residency under Bengal, and 2 years later, Singapore became their capital. When the East India Company lost its monopoly of the China trade in 1833, it also lost its interest in Malaya. The settlements were transferred to the direct control of the Governor-General of India in 1851. In 1867, they were made a crown colony under the Colonial Office in London. Meanwhile, Singapore's trade had suffered after 1842 from British development of a rival port, Hong Kong, as later it was to suffer from the French occupation of mainland Southeast Asia, and their development of Saigon, now known as Ho Chi Minh City. With the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 and the advent of steamships, however, an era of prosperity began that led eventually to the construction of 3 miles of wharves at Tanjung Pagar and finally, in 1921, a naval base. The economic growth of the Malay states after they became British protectorates enlarged transit trade. The demand of the industrial West for tin and rubber was what made Singapore one of the greatest ports in the world. In early December of 1941, the Japanese landed in northern Malaya and southern Thailand on the Malay Peninsula. They quickly gained air and naval superiority in the region, and by the end of January of 1942, they had overrun the peninsula and were opposite Singapore Island. The Japanese crossed the Johor Strait on February 8, 1942, and the British command surrendered the island and city 1 week later. Singapore remained in Japanese hands until September 1945. Post-war British political plans for Malaya excluded Singapore from a proposed Malayan Union and later from the Federation, mainly because it was thought that Singapore's predominantly Chinese population would be an ethnic obstacle to common. As a separate crown colony from 1946, Singapore made considerable progress despite the communist insurrection in Malaya. Elected ministers in a legislative assembly with an elected majority assumed government responsibility in 1955, except for matters of defense and foreign policy. In 1959, the official and nominated elements were eliminated and Singapore became self-governing, although Britain still retained control of defense and foreign policy. Singapore joined the Federation of Malaysia on its formation in September 1963. The ruling People's Action Party, led by Lee Kuan Yew, had refused in 1959 to form a government until extreme left-wing leaders of the party who had been detained by the colonial. Those leaders opposed the concept of Malaysia and broke away from the PAP to form the Socialist Front, which was accused of being a communist front organization. The PAP faced fresh dangers of subversion when Indonesian opposition to Malaysia took the form of military and economic confrontation, which ended in 1966. But Singapore had seceded from Malaysia in 1965 at the invitation of the Malaysian government and become an independent republic. Following independence, Singapore faced numerous challenges, including political instability, overpopulation, and the effects of climate change. The country's population more than doubled between 1974 and 2011, despite large-scale emigration to neighboring regions. The government has also grappled with corruption and the management of refugee populations, including the Rohingya. However, Singapore has emerged as a global leader in economic development, innovation, and sustainability. The country's economy has been shaped by its strategic location, its highly skilled workforce, and its commitment to innovation and entrepreneurship. Singapore has also been a leader in addressing climate change, given its vulnerability to rising sea levels and extreme weather events. The history of Singapore is a story of resilience, innovation, and transformation. From its early days as a fishing village to its emergence as a global city-state, Singapore has overcome numerous challenges and emerged as a leader in economic development, innovation, and sustainability. The country's rich cultural heritage and its commitment to cultural exchange reflect its global outlook and its enduring spirit. Singapore's journey from ancient civilizations to independence is a source of inspiration and a reminder of the enduring strength of its population.